Ready to start video? Yeah. Yeah.
The live stream should be up and running now.
Okay, fantastic. Well, it's 1 o'clock and I always like to stay timely. And we got everybody here, which is a good thing. State Senator Malcolm Augustine here as a joint Committee on Management of Public Funds Senate Chair. Definitely pleased to be here with you all and looking forward to hearing as we have done annually from the Treasurer, Comptroller, and also OLA with regard to the local government audits. And we also are here today going to hear from the Maryland Municipal League, who I think it really is important to hear for them about an update on the Federal American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 funds and how that is being handled by our municipalities. I'm really looking forward to that. And now I'll just turn it over to Chair Young.
Thank you, Chair Augustine, and just echo the remarks of my chair from the Senate, Delegate Pat Young from 44B, and the House Chair of the Joint Committee. Looking forward to this hearing from this is the one we look forward to the most, and I believe we're starting out with Treasurer Nancy Kopp, who, one, it's good to see you again, and two, I know that you've announced some news recently, and I'm afraid this will be our last time in this position presenting to us. Are you muted, ma'am? We have you muted, ma'am. Treasurer Kopp. If we can unmute you. There we go.
I think it's done.
You're good.
For your help, I appreciate it. Yeah, I announced Monday, Mr. Chairman, that after 50 years working on the staff of the General Assembly, as a member of the General Assembly and as your state treasurer, that it seemed to me an appropriate time to thank you all and to retire so I can go on cheering from the sidelines. And so I did, and I just want to thank you for all the work the General Assembly has done and all the support the General Assembly has given the Treasurer's Office and me, and what a pleasure it has been. So thank you. I believe you have our written report, so I'm not going to sit here and read it, but would point out to the committee a couple of areas that I think are very, very important and in the process of growing. The first one was where we are in our IT initiative, which is really to redo our IT system. As you know, Mr. Chairman, a few years ago, IBM told us they were no longer supporting our old legacy system, which had been there for quite a long time. And we embarked in a new general process to replace that system with a totally new one, the Microsoft Dynamic 365 and different parts of it. We've made great progress, slowed by the pandemic, but now particularly the accounting system is all up and the insurance system is about all up, including the portals where our citizens, your constituents, can reach out and start their insurance claim against the state because a pothole has wrecked their car or whatever the incident may be. We are also making great progress with the banking module and look forward to it on when we really will be up to date with the rest of the world. And we couldn't have done it without your support and without the support of the fiscal committees of the General Assembly. And I thank you again very much for that. Touching on the insurance division, as I've mentioned, as you know, the state self-insures to a large degree, but then we procure commercial insurance. And one of the things that I've been trying to draw the attention of the General Assembly to is the fact that not only are insurance rates going up, not only are they impacted by the need to maintain, the unmet need to maintain all of our state and university buildings, but now we're beginning to see the impact of climate change, both through changeable weather, hurricane, et cetera, or saline waters infiltrating the groundwaters in any number of areas. And obviously, you know, the Ellicott City problems exacerbated by climate change. They are now beginning to show up not only in our rates, but also in the in the focus the insurance companies are putting on whether in fact they want to be involved with us. So it's something I urge the committee particularly to keep an eye on as time passes. In the banking division, we still do balance, Mr. Chairman, the accounts to the penny on a daily basis, for which I have to thank our great STO banking staff. And I have to tell you that because of COVID money coming in and because of the impetus that the very well-timed federal funds input into the state, which allowed companies to stay in business and allowed people to stay employed, and therefore allowed the federal funds to circulate and recirculate within the state. We at this moment have more than 13 billion, almost 14 billion in our portfolio, which is significantly more than in past years and normal. And I know you've heard the report from our Board of Revenue Estimates, the Revenue Estimating Group. And we think that not only is this year's budget going to be good, just this year's revenue, but the staff believes that there actually is a structural change and improvement in the state revenue. Obviously, something to watch very, very closely. Going on just for a moment to debt. The debt group, we issued, as you know, about 500 million in new money and another 250 or so in refunding money in August, got very good rates, continue to be among the 13 AAA rated states, I think, because not only do we have a strong economy and a well-trained workforce, but good conservative management practices. I lay out for you here the specific numbers. I'm not going to read through them, but just know we are planning to go again in March for this second or the first 2022, the second fiscal 2022 sale. And finally, the Capital Debt Affordability Committee met, as you know, Monday and recommended to the legislature an authorization of 900 million in new general obligation debt, with the understanding that because of the present fiscal situation, we can reasonably assume that there will be sufficient operating funds to use for capital projects, which if you do, obviously it's less expensive because the operating funds you don't pay interest on. But I would urge you, Mr. Chairman, to be perfectly candid. The recommendation was for 900 million was a 4-to-1 vote. Your treasurer was the one vote. I do believe that we have to continue investing in our infrastructure on a steady basis and according to all of the guidelines that we have used traditionally and that the rating agencies accept and recognize in giving us a AAA rating, we could be putting more in our infrastructure than 900 million. And with that, I hope I have briefly enough summarized what we have before you and stand ready to answer any questions you might have.
Madam Treasurer, questions from the committee and Senator Augustine?
Sure, absolutely. First of all, let me say thank you to the treasurer. My time here has been only for the last 3 years, but you have just been so open and available, and so you and your staff have been such good communicators, and I'm really grateful for that. I'm grateful for your service. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Let me just say something that I don't know if I've said this before, but I think you recognize the fact, looking at me and talking to me, it's not only been a great honor and a challenge, it's been a lot of fun. And I appreciate very much all that you all have done.
Thank you. I do have a question for you. When we look at the investment division, and I know that you list here the minority brokers and dealers who are on the approved list, how much is being managed? What are the numbers? Because I've been getting a lot of inquiries about that. And so where do we stand on that?
I am going to have to get back to you, Senator. I'm sure you can understand that when I read through this, that's exactly the note that I put next to this number. I think you and the committee understand, but everybody should. This is basically a cash management function, this investment. This is not like the pension fund. Most of it is overnight, and they're very large sums of money, and they have to be collateralized for the state. So it's not the sort of function that many broker dealers actually want to undertake. And yet we do have, as you mentioned, over 20 signed up to work with us. And it varies from time to time, depending on the amount of money and the cash flow situation. I will get back to you with specific numbers as of probably September 30.
Okay, I really would appreciate that.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Senator Benson has her hand raised.
Yes.
Now you're muted, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to, I don't have a question, but I want to say to my wonderful friend, this wonderful state treasurer, what a joy it has been to work with you, Nancy, over the years. You served in the House of Delegates together. Right. It was just a wonderful experience, and we had no hesitation when we were asked to support you for the state treasurer's position, and you have done exceedingly well. And we want you to know that you're leaving. It's kind of like a bittersweet kind of thing, but we recognize the fact that you have done an impeccable job serving the citizens and your community, and working very wonderfully well with those of us who are down here in Annapolis, trying to raise the bar and to continue the kind of progress that has occurred in the great state of Maryland. And I want to, on behalf of the citizens of this great state, want to thank you for the work that you have done. You just surrounded yourself with the best and the brightest. But I just want you to know how much we deeply love you. And the wonderful thing is that you're leaving when you're in good health, and you can spend time with your wonderful husband and children and grandchildren and the community. And so that to me is extremely wonderful. And I want to thank you and let you know that I really, truly love you and appreciate all the work that you have done in maintaining and watching over the money that comes into the great state of Maryland, the money that leaves the great state of Maryland. You have just been wonderful. So I want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Let you know that.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we do go back quite a ways. And
Way back,
And
yes.
you have
when we were
always
much
been
younger.
you've been a source of strength and comfort. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. But it has been great. And I hope that you all will allow me to keep in touch and to help in any way I can. I love this great state. And as you know, the first branch of government, the General Assembly, is where I started and where my a good portion of my heart still is.
Well, what's most exciting for me is that you bore the burden in the heat of the storm. You have taken some very principled stands, and to me, to talk to you as a principled leader, person with integrity, with conviction, with focus, you know, not getting caught up in a lot of the political stuff, but what is right. It just really is refreshing to have someone in this position such as yourself. And I want you to know,
Thanks.
profoundly and deeply appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Senator Benson. Colleagues, are there any other questions or comments for the treasurer? Okay, hearing none. Again, I'll
Thank
just
you.
so very much and for all of your service, and look forward to continuing.
Thank you.
Stay
It's been a
working with you.
pleasure. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to continuing to work with you. I hope you don't mind if I stay watching. I agree that the item with local government sounds fascinating.
Please, I'm grateful that you'll be with us. That'd be fantastic. Thank
Always-
you.
Thank you.
Okay, so next on our agenda, we are set to hear from the comptroller, who I do believe is with us. Comptroller Franchot, thank you.
Yes, happy to be here. How is everybody?
Good.
Thank
Welcome.
you.
Wonderful.
Everybody awake, or are you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, I used to sit through these meetings and they're wonderful, wonderfully informative, but Senator and Mr. Senate Chairman and Delegate Chairman, I am at your disposal. I have a statement that I'd like to read.
Absolutely.
And thank you for the opportunity. Obviously, we love to update this committee because you really are a partner with us in our customer service juggernaut that we've created over here in the comptroller's office. In the interest of time, Mr. Chairman, I'm summarizing my written testimony. I'm pleased to have with me today my indispensable Deputy Comptroller, Sharon Bernardi. I mean, I just want everybody to realize what an asset she is to the state of Maryland. Because I, like all of you, am a politician. It's good to have someone like Sharon working as Deputy Comptroller because it's a complicated agency that we have, and she does a superlative job, and I'm delighted that she is the Deputy Comptroller. And Sharon, you want to run for Comptroller after me? You'd be a fabulous Comptroller, making the trains run on time. But I also want to recognize Andy Schaffel, who's on our call. He's the head of our Bureau of Revenue Estimates and is our chief economist. Sandy Zink, Chuck Ohm, Gary White, Duran Shaw, Dennis Krisiak, Chris Riley, Wayne Green. Everybody is standing ready to answer any and all questions you may have. I've always looked to this committee as a partner in the effort to ensure Maryland taxpayers are getting the best possible results from their hard-earned tax dollars. I see my good friend, Senator Riley. Thank you, because this is a nonpartisan operation that we're running. There's no such thing as a Democratic tax return or a Republican tax return. This is just doing the people's business. Throughout the COVID pandemic, I've remained committed to utilizing all the resources of the agency to assist struggling Marylanders and families weathering this unprecedented crisis. We've provided economic relief for Maryland's small businesses and taxpayers by extending the filing deadline for personal and business tax filers, offering collection forbearances, and stopping audits and enforcement activities. I was extremely pleased when the General Assembly passed the Relief Act, 2021, offering Marylanders much needed assistance. As the state's paymaster, the Relief Act charged the Comptroller's Office with numerous tasks, including but not limited to disbursement of multiple stimulus payments and grants and the processing of expanded tax credits. The time of the Relief Act's passage, we identified, and this was very helpful to you guys, but frankly, it's a list that should have been bigger, but we identified for you 422,531 taxpayers eligible for economic impact payments. This is a very important figure because it's a large number of people. And they're all in our database. Within 1 week of your bill's enactment, my office, I think you passed it Monday night. I think the governor signed it on Tuesday. By Friday, we had 98% of the payments out the door. 266,985 payments were deposited directly into people's bank accounts. So that happened on Friday of that week. 148,972 payments, 35% of the recipients received paper checks because we did not have banking information that we were confident in. But the point is, it all got outed within a matter of days, and it's all been done properly, and it's all been fraud-free. I emphasize that, fraud-free. The Relief Act also charged the comptroller with disbursing unemployment insurance grant payments if Marylanders stuck in adjudication. And I'm pleased to report that we dispersed $40.2 million in UI grant payments to 40,273 Marylanders, once again, within days of receiving the list of payees from the Labor Department. Due to the more than 22,697 unique businesses qualifying for the sales and use tax credit, we continue to make automatic adjustments to qualifying business taxpayer accounts to reflect that credit. Some qualifying Marylanders filed their return prior to the enactment of your Relief Act. My office has retroactively applied the increased credit to ensure that all qualifying Marylanders receive their deserved benefits. General Assembly also expanded EIC benefits to taxpayers who file with an individual taxpayer identification number, ITIN number. Means they don't have a social security number, but they're paying taxes. That's why they're in our database. In total, there were 447,302 filers who claimed the EIC in tax year 2020. 42,039 filers using an ITIN received an EIC, resulting in $391.3 million in EIC refunds being dispersed. I'm pleased to report that despite the challenges of the pandemic that it continues to impose, we've had another successful and efficient tax filing season. We collected $19 billion in gross revenue, processed more than 3.1 million individual income tax returns, dispersed $2.6 billion in refunds to more than 2.5 million Maryland families on average within 2.5 business days. For tax returns that do not require additional review, the average processing time was even lower than 2.5 days. It was 2.2 business days. More than 2.8 million Marylanders filed electronically this year, representing about 90% of all tax returns processed to date. Although we encourage the use of our online filing system, we continue to ensure that we process paper tax returns in a timely and expeditious fashion. My office has also redoubled its efforts to reunite Marylanders with unclaimed property. This is the list that you guys mandate that we put out every year. Thanks to that unprecedented outreach effort, we have paid out more than $919 million in unclaimed property claims since I took office 15 years ago. Last year, we paid out more than $57 million in unclaimed property claims. Today, we have approximately 17.2 million open unclaimed property accounts worth $1.9 billion. And we remain committed to reuniting Marylanders with their money. Additionally, we remain steadfast in our efforts to combat the ever-present threat of tax fraud and identity theft. Since the enactment of the Taxpayer Protection Act of 2017, thank you guys very much. My agency has worked closely with Attorney General Frosch and law enforcement partners to bring criminals to justice. This year alone, we've detected and blocked more than 8,500 fraudulent returns worth nearly $18.9 million. As comptroller, my top priority is to reward taxpayers who do the right thing and while aggressively collecting from folks that are abusing the system or cheating on the system. Through new initiatives and investing in advanced technology, we've captured more than $7.2 billion in delinquent taxes over the past 14 years. Our 12 branch offices across the state and 2 remote call centers continue to be at the heart of the customer service model that we have delivered to the public. Out of an abundance of caution and concern for the safety of taxpayers and our staff, all branch offices closed to the public on December 17th, 2020 for walk-in service and only conducted virtual appointments until June 1st, 2021, when the state of emergency was lifted. Despite these challenges, last year, our branch office representatives assisted more than 138,000 taxpayers while providing more than 2,000 Marylanders with free tax preparation. They received nearly 5,000 walk-in appointments, more than 17,000 virtual appointments. All told, over this season, our call centers received more than 500,000 calls, including more than 306,000 calls from individual taxpayers. Our nationally recognized Field Enforcement Bureau continues to work across Maryland enforcing motor fuel taxes, investigating criminal tax fraud, providing state licenses, and ensuring sales and use taxes are properly paid. To that end, the Field Enforcement Division conducted nearly 3,000 site inspections of motor fuel accounts, processed nearly 10,000 fuel samples, updated half of the more than 83,000 active state license accounts, has maintained a 100% conviction rate for criminal tax fraud investigations, sold more than $350 million worth of tobacco tax stamps. And then quickly, in conclusion, I'd like to provide an update on our ongoing transition into Compass, our state-of-the-art tax processing system, which you all funded. Thank goodness you did, because long after we're all gone, the state of Maryland will benefit from this new user-friendly tax system. Compass has already begun to be implemented. It's being released over a period of 5 years. Release 1 has already occurred, dealing with alcohol tax and corporate income tax. It's been implemented successfully. During the first calendar year in use, 35,000 alcohol tax returns were processed, along with payments totaling more than $30 million in successful transactions. Release 2 and Release 3 are on schedule to be released in fourth quarter of 2022, third quarter of 2024, respectively. Lastly, I'd like to provide an update on the legislature's mandate on my agency to conduct a review of pandemic relief spending. Thank goodness you guys did this. Somebody has to do it. To fulfill the mandate, I put together a work group comprised of division leaders, which has received presentation from multiple state agencies as part of our ongoing thorough review of pandemic relief programs that benefited Marylanders. We've submitted 2 of 4 quarterly reports to the General Assembly, with the next one due in January 2022. All workshop meetings are open to the public, live streamed on the internet, and the videos and materials for each meeting are archived on our website at marylandtaxes.gov. Chairman Young and Chairman Augustine, if I could just give a word of thanks to my dedicated 1,100 employees. Since last March, we've worked tirelessly to provide the best possible service to the people of Maryland. Many of my employees didn't have the luxury of teleworking that so many of us enjoyed. Paychecks for state employees had to be processed. Payments to hundreds of thousands of vendors had to go out. Tax returns had to be reviewed and processed. Like so many state employees that work in our agencies, the men and women of the Comptroller's Office rose to the occasion and worked tirelessly to do their job. I emphasize that all of the relief, all of the dollars and things that I talked about in the first part of this statement, all happened simultaneous with the start of the tax season. And I can't tell you how congested it was and how much concern there was. That's why I'm so proud and grateful, frankly, to all the employees, but particularly to my Deputy Comptroller, Sharon Bernardi. Thank you again, Chairman Augustine and Chairman Young, members of the committee. We obviously are very proud of our close relationship with you and partnership. So open for questions, and as are the members of the staff.
Thank you, Mr. Comptroller. And committee questions. I have one, and it's one that I know that we've talked about and you've talked about in the past too, Mr. Comptroller, and it's the unclaimed property, and you're mentioning it's still out there worth 1.9. Obviously, you all are doing everything you can. What are some of those challenges of reaching those folks and trying to get that 1.9 billion back to people?
Well, the 1.9 billion has been spent by you guys. So it's a debt in perpetuity. And we do a lot of vigorous advertising. We're set up at the county fairs and the state fair with kiosks, and we're constantly looking and helping people to find out. But it's a one step forward, one step back. I mentioned 57 million. We got well more than that put into the account in the last year. We paid out 57 million, but I think 75 or more million came in from the fact that people and companies were just starting to get big payments from insurance companies. Life insurance payments used to be exempt from this. These big life insurers would just gobble up the money and sit on it. But we changed that through regulation, and I think with some help from legislation. But the issue is that it's basically self-renewing, so it never is going to get down to zero. Good question, though.
Sure. Senator Augustine, I believe you have.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Comptroller Francho, for your report and for the fact that there aren't a whole lot of questions. That's a testament to the operation, without a doubt. I'm curious, I want a clarification for me on the EIC tax benefit that you talked about. I'm just trying to understand. I understood that 391.3 million in refunds were dispersed. The next number that you gave was the 106.6 million. Or is that for the I-10 folks who received this? Or can you just help me understand?
Well, let me it's a very good question, because a lot of people are left out. This EITC program, which is a huge anti-poverty tool, partnership between the federal government and the state government, as you know, Senator Augustine, is a very important, successful anti-poverty program, but it's very difficult to get into. It's what we call a document-rich program. So when you guys and went along with the governor and said, this is the filter that everybody's going to have to go through, I had a partial stroke, because it just leaves out so many people who have both paid us money and have paid tax money to us, or good citizens, and are not included in the relief because they can't get into this EITC program. So you did allow the I-10 filers, some of them, to get it. And I'll ask Sharon to tell, I don't know whether it was 30 or 40,000 that are included in this, Sharon, but I hate to complain, I'm not. I would just like to say that we continue to have a big list of I-10 filers that did not qualify for EITC because it's complicated, difficult, looking backward. And I've advocated, just in conclusion, by we reported 2.5 billion in surplus revenue that is in the state's bank accounts. And that was at the last revenue. And then, as the treasurer noted in her earlier testimony, we expect to get another 2.5 billion in over the year we're in and the next year coming. I've suggested that half of that be put in the rainy day fund, 2.5 billion, because we're not really sure what's going to happen. But we take $1 billion and send it in $2,000 payments to the original list I gave everybody, the governor and you guys, that did not have this EITC filter. These are people that pay taxes in Maryland. They don't have documents. But, this whole situation, it frustrates me. But so anyway, I'm going to let the deputy comptroller clean that up, but
Okay.
believe me, you guys were on the right track originally in saying that $2,000 payments should be sent out. The governor chose to demand that it be done through EITC, and that was a very unfortunate decision. You guys had to go along with it. That's okay. But if I were you at this point, I would demand that 900 million be distributed immediately to 450,000 low-wage earning families that have no income, no money for medicine, no money for food. And frankly, as we speak, they're standing in food lines waiting for a box of free food. And to deny that that is out there is just, open your eyes, everybody. And so this one-time only money, this is not ongoing money. So please don't plug it into the operating budget as if this is something that's going to be ongoing. It'll come in, as we said, this year and next year. But after that, it's unclear exactly where we're headed. But Sharon, do you want to just fill in? I've got something that says that it's both I-10 and regular EIC filers, 106 million over previous years EIC.
And I had that the total EIC filers were 447,000, and of them in 2020 there were 42,000 who were I-10 filers, and so the total EIC refunds that were dispersed for tax year 2020 was $391.3 million. But as you said, Mr. Comptroller, we are one of the few states that expanded the EIC to I-10 filers because we know that that's not done on the federal level. And we continue to work with various advocacy groups so that we can identify other potential EIC recipients. And we have used our state-of-the-art data warehouse to identify other potential EIC filers, and we're planning outreach initiatives with them so that we can increase the number of potential EIC recipients in the upcoming tax years, as well as see if we can have outreach to those who had not filed in previous tax years for which they would be due refunds. So it's definitely a priority that we have at your direction.
So I appreciate that. My question is the 42,000, how much money did they get?
And we can get that exact figure for you, but the average refund ranges around $500 to $1,000 on the state level, but we can get you the exact number that's associated with those I-10 returns.
Yeah, it did not have the federal amount.
Correct.
Senator, if that's what you're alluding to. And because the feds require Social Security.
Exactly. That's where I was going with that. So
Yeah.
I wanted to understand really what the amount that the
I don't mean to be too compassionate and too empathetic, but frankly, this quibbling over possible fraud and abuse, I guess, is what we're trying to avoid. No, get the money out. We know these people work and earn money and pay taxes. And a lot of them are not getting it because they didn't qualify for EITC. And even if they do qualify under your relief plan, they only get the state portion, not the
Which is
federal
around
portion.
42 million. So we'll definitely
Yeah.
get that number
So,
for you.
yeah, no, I agree with that, but we need to expand our universe a little bit here. And the key thing I'd leave with the committee, giving $2,000 in one-time only relief to 433,000 low-wage earning families that have jobs and have paid taxes and they're not fraudsters or crooks or something. That helps all of us because it's in a mini way, it's a version of what happened with the federal relief. That money gets spent immediately and it gives a boost to the entire state economy. So we're not just doing something for low-wage earning families, which we should be doing, frankly. We're also doing something for the rest of us, the small businesses and everyone else, because this money that the feds put in is so demonstrably clear that it saved the Maryland economy. And so adding this little bit of relief on top of it, $2,000 checks to these low wage earners, I think would be a useful thing. And we could spend 900 million of the total 5 billion that's going to be coming to the state on a one-time only basis.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate, do anyone else have any other questions for the comptroller from the committee?
I went to the Anne Arundel Fair and I can't remember whether I saw Senator Riley there, but the camel that I usually ride, Sam, was not there. Sam has been apparently retired for COVID reasons somewhere down in Florida. But Senator,
Mr.
thank you.
Comptroller, Mr. Comptroller, I was at a wedding up in New York. You know, after a year and a half of being locked into our homes, now that COVID is starting to break, weddings and funerals are becoming more important for the fabric of our families.
You're up there now?
No, I'm here in Maryland, but for the fair.
Oh, for the fair. That's why I didn't see you. Right.
Okay.
Well, I miss Sam, that's for sure. Sam the camel.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Comptroller Francho, and thank you for coming before us today. I do appreciate that. I do think that we have our next presentation will come from the Office of Legislative Audits, where we get our annual review of local government's audit reports. Are we ready for that?
Yes, sir.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, we ready?
Yes, we are.
My name is Bob Garman. I'm Assistant Director of Quality Control for the Office of Legislative Audits. As requested by the committee, I'm here this afternoon to talk about the Office of Legislative Audits responsibilities for monitoring local government audits. Our latest review, which was for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2020, disclosed that by and large, local governments appeared to have complied with accounting principles and auditing standards and appear to be in good financial condition. However, it may be of interest to the committee that 9 local governments were delinquent in following their required audit reports. We also identified a number of local governments that had uninsured and uncollateralized cash deposits, which is a violation of state law. My presentation will address the following areas. First, I'll provide an overview of the local government auditing process. I'll talk about the legal requirements and the monitoring procedures employed by our office. Next, I'll talk about the problems disclosed in our latest review, which, as I said, was for the fiscal year 2020. Next, we'll talk about some of the follow-up actions taken, and finally, I'll have a few concluding comments. Okay, so I wanted to start with an overview of the process. Based on the provisions of Title 16 of the Local Government Article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, each county, incorporated city and town, and taxing district in Maryland is required to have an annual audit. However, certain small governments could request a waiver of the annual audit requirement and have an audit once every 4 years. So 10 small local governments requested and were granted waivers of the annual requirement for fiscal year 2020. The law requires the audit to be performed by an independent certified public accountant and for the audit to be conducted in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. The law also provides the financial statements to be presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Our office has issued audit guidelines intended to help ensure a minimum acceptable level of quality is maintained. We perform desk reviews to determine compliance with auditing standards and accounting principles and with certain state laws. Our desk reviews also include a financial analysis of each local government, which is basically a trend and ratio analysis of the last 5 years of financial data. And this is an attempt to try to identify local governments that might be heading towards financial problems. Upon completion of our review, we prepare a summary report that highlights the areas of noncompliance with the audit guidelines, departures from accounting principles, violations of state law, the collateralization requirements, and any potential financial problems we might note from unfavorable general fund trends and ratios. So next I want to talk about some of the problems noted during our most recent review, which, as I said, was for the fiscal year 2020. Most local governments substantially complied with the standards. Our review disclosed that about 23% of the reports, 45 of 194 reports due, had one or more areas of noncompliance. Many of the instances of noncompliance were relatively minor things, such as late filing of reports. So, and we noted during fiscal year 2020 that the number of local governments with areas of noncompliance went down somewhat as compared to fiscal year 2019. By the end of our review, and we cut off our review for fiscal year 2020 in mid-July of 2021, there was one government that still hadn't filed its fiscal year 2018, 2019, and 2020 reports. And that was the town of Deer Park. They're out in Western Maryland, Garrett County. Additionally, 8 other local governments have not filed their fiscal year 2020 reports, just the 1 year. The local governments that failed to file, the local government that failed to file their audit report for multiple years, Deer Park, was reported to the executive director of our department, the Department of Legislative Services. If these reports are not filed, the comptroller, acting upon the advice of the executive director, is authorized by law to discontinue the payment of all funds, grants, or state aid to which the local government is entitled. Budget language adopted during previous sessions of the Maryland General Assembly has resulted in the withholding of transportation aid from certain local governments, including Deer Park, pending receipt of their delinquent audit reports. I don't know why Deer Park has had such problems getting their reports filed, but I would point out in one case when another local government had failed to file a series of reports, it turned out that the town's mayor was stealing money from the town. I'm not implying that that's happening in Deer Park. I have no idea if that's happening or not, but the fact that they're not submitting their audit reports is detrimental to fiscal accountability. But subsequent to our latest deficiency letter to the town of Deer Park, they did file their fiscal year 2018 report, but they still haven't filed their fiscal year 2019 report, 2020 report, and pretty soon they won't have filed their fiscal year 2021 report, so they continue to be delinquent. Other towns that had not filed at the time of our summary report, Chesapeake City and Sudlersville, have now filed their fiscal year 2020 report, so they're no longer considered delinquent. So we'll follow up on all the remaining delinquent reports during our upcoming review of the fiscal year 2021 reports. So the delinquent reports was a concern. Some of the other deficiencies noted included audit report deficiencies, inappropriate presentation of financial statements, and inadequate footnote disclosures. Our review also disclosed 15 local governments that were not in compliance with state law and that they had uninsured, uncollateralized cash deposits. And there's a detailed listing of those local governments in the back of our summary report. For the most part, the amounts of cash deposits that were not collateralized were relatively small in relation to the total cash held by the local governments. And in some cases, it was indicated that the local governments had taken corrective action subsequent to the end of the fiscal year. One local government was identified with what we consider to be a potential financial problem. Specifically, the auditor's report for the Upper Potomac River Commission Waste Treatment Plant Fund, which is a taxing district out in Western Maryland in Allegheny County, right on the Potomac River, this place is. And so their auditor included an emphasis paragraph describing an uncertainty regarding the fund's ability to continue as a going concern. So going concern is an accounting term, meaning that the town may become insolvent, or not the town, the taxing district, the commission might not be able to keep continuing because of financial problems. The notes the fund's financial statements that the fund's management was in the process of addressing how to fulfill its obligations, given its economic dependence on a private corporation. Basically, this has to do with the closing. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the paper mill out in Luke, Maryland, and it closed down, and it was a big deal for the economy out there. The wastewater from the paper plant was processed by the Upper Potomac River Commission. That's where they got most of their operating revenues from. So going forward, they're going to be scrambling to try to fund their operations, I guess. So anyway, so that's an idea of some of the things we found during our most current review. Next, I want to just briefly talk about the follow-up actions we took. So we sent letters regarding the areas of non-compliance with the audit guidelines to each of the local governments and their auditors, so that the problems can be corrected in future years. For areas of non-compliance with state laws and potential financial problems, letters are sent to the local governments when necessary. Governments are asked to provide a description of corrective actions to be taken. Other follow-up actions taken by our office is the issue of the summary report, which we do every year, and then my report to this committee every year. In conclusion, the Office of Legislative Audit functions in an oversight capacity by issuing audit guidelines and reviewing local government audit reports for compliance with standards and certain state laws, and notifying local governments of any deficiencies noted. We believe these efforts have improved the quality of audits and have promoted fiscal accountability among local governments in Maryland. I would be happy to answer any questions the committee might have at this time.
Thank you, sir. Sorry, Senator Augustine, I see Tom Reynolds from MML. Sir, do you have a question or a comment? Or
Yeah, I just want to make a comment about, first of all, I want to thank.
Okay, Mr.
Department
Reynolds.
of the-
stand by.
Hold on.
Stand by. We're going to let the committee go first. But I just
Oh,
want
I'm
to
sorry.
acknowledge that
Yeah.
you were okay. Got it.
Okay.
Any comments or questions from the committee for the department? And I see Senator Benson.
Yes, thank you.
You're muted, Senator Benson.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
yes. I'm looking here at, thank you very much for that report. I want you to know that I deeply appreciate that.
Thank you.
Looking at the audit report here, and it's one municipality that I'm particularly concerned about. But historically, this municipality has not given or has not sent in its audit report timely for I don't know how many years. There are allegations from this particular municipality that the town is broke. That is what I'm hearing as the elected, and the delegates are hearing this basically the same thing, and the community is hearing basically the same thing. So what I'm asking you is, in view of the fact that the audit report has not been given in, and historically this municipality has not sent in the necessary information for the past, I don't know how many years, what recourse will the state take in reference to this particular municipality?
Generally, when local governments don't follow their audit reports, we will follow up with them. We send a letter to them saying you don't follow your audit report. If you don't follow your report, state funds can be withheld. And I talked about that in the past. There have been instances where state money is withheld to try to force the towns to get their audits done and submitted. If the local government is habitual in not following their audit reports, and for example, like Deer Park, I know Deer Park is not who you're talking about, they're in your district, but if there's a provision in state law that if the local government doesn't follow the reports for 3 consecutive years, that the director of our department, the Department of Legislative Services, can inform the Secretary of State, and basically the town's charter can be revoked. Now, whether we would ever do that, I'm skeptical that we would want to do that, because that's only in cases, I think, when the town is actually defunct and hasn't been functioning. But those are the kind of mechanisms that we would employ to try to get the local government to follow their report, and that's primarily withholding of funds, and the revoking the charter is an outlier possibility. Like I said, we do send letters every year. We contact the towns to see what's going on, and normally we can get compliance. If they become more than 1 year late, then this committee has asked us, as well as sending a letter to the town. We also plug the delegation or of the senator and the delegates of whose district the town is in. They get copied on the letter. So for example, the town of Deer Park, when we sent our latest letter to them in July of this year saying, hey, you haven't followed your 2018, 2019, and 2020 reports, where are DC, the senator and the delegate out there in Western Maryland. And we actually did get Senator Edwards from Garrett, Allegheny County, sent an email to the mayor of the town of Deer Park asking, hey, what the heck is going on? How come you haven't followed your reports? And shortly thereafter, lo and behold, we did get the audit report from 2018. So that's some progress, but they're still several years behind. But that's another way that we try to get the be.
Well, the reason why I'm asking this question is just within the past couple of weeks, the Board of Public Works just agreed to give this municipality $250,000. And I'm looking here at that the fact that they have not filed the audit reports, but it's my understanding, and from what I know, this has been a historical problem that they have not been able to submit their audit reports in a timely fashion. So I would guess that the $250,000 will be sent on into this municipality. Is that correct?
I assume so. I'm not aware of that, but there hasn't been anything done from our point of view that would prohibit that money from going to the town.
Even though they have not submitted the audit report.
Correct. I mean, there is, like I said, there is a mechanism to withhold money from these towns, but it's also, I think it's somewhat a political thing, because it happened for several years in a row. Transportation funds were withheld from Deer Park, and there was another town over on the Eastern Shore who was having money withheld. It was my understanding that a couple of sessions ago, when that measure went before the budget committees, one of the delegates for one of the districts in one of those local municipalities was located, argued that we shouldn't be withholding money from those towns, and he was able to convince the budget committee, and that language was struck from the budget bill. So unfortunately, well, from my point of view, unfortunately, no, that doesn't really help us get the locals to send in their reports. So I guess, I would hope that the General Assembly would support us in, withholding money in cases where we can, to try to get compliance with the provisions of law about these audits.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Benson. I do have, maybe it's not so much a question, but it is where we might need to be making recommendations, which of course is what we do. I'm very concerned about the Upper Potomac River Commission, that you've kind of raised a red flag here about that. And I'm concerned whether or not there are potentially larger liability for the state and for us associated with the closing of that mill, and similarly, is there something, can you speak to that a little bit, and what we may need to, how we may need to approach that?
It's really, for me, it's sort of a unusual topic, because the Upper Potomac River Commission, waste treatment facility, obviously, they're processing wastewater. They also run a dam, Savage River Dam, which controls the flow into the Potomac River. So, I mean, they're taxing districts, so they fall under the purview of this review because they're required by the laws to have these audit reports done. But I'm not an expert on wastewater treatment, certainly. And I know the closing of the paper mill in Luke has been, like I said, for the entire region up there. It cost many jobs, and it's an economically depressed area anyway. I'm not sure what they're going to do going forward, whether there's any other liabilities with the state. I'm sure that the Department of Environment would be concerned.
Exactly.
And might be able to provide some support to them. And we did, like I said, as part of our follow-up, we sent them a letter saying, hey, we noted your auditor said you might have problems as a going concern. So, what kind of correct it is. So we got a response from them, and they said, I guess the paper mill is still processing some waste. So they're still getting some funds from the paper mill, but I realized they also provide like sewage treatment for, they call it the tri-city area. And the cities are Luke, Westernport, and Piedmont, West Virginia. So it's not like exactly a booming metropolis, but they do need their sewage to be processed by someone. So whether they can just scale back their operations, like I said, I'm not a waste treatment expert, so I don't know if they can just scale back and still be able to function financially. And so I'm sorry, I really can't speak to that very well, because
No, you've done fine. I think that what you've done though is you've just raised the red flag,
which I think had already been raised. I mean, I think the people out there are well aware. They knew, this whole it's been a big deal for the people out there in Allegheny County.
No, I definitely get and understand that. I'm talking about for us as the General Assembly and state, and as a larger issue that we do know that we have to contend with as that is closed. The impact of that economically, obviously in Western Maryland, but the environment, it's all one environment, and if it's on the Savage, I'm not sure where the Savage flows to, but eventually it's gonna, if it's part of the Chesapeake watershed, it's gonna get to everything else. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate the response. Any other questions from members of the committee?
One quick, and it sort
Sure,
of
yeah.
goes into what Senator Benson was referring to. I just was curious from your perspective with running through these audits. You mentioned in your conclusion too, you are playing an oversight role with the pandemic, with getting responses back from some of these municipalities and folks that need to report to you and answer these questions. What's been the challenge that you've seen from them? I went back and looked at some of the previous reports, and there's clearly things we see every year, but it seemed like there was a bit more substance to your report this year than in the past. Just wanted to know what you'd experienced hearing from these municipalities with the impact of COVID-19.
Well, to tell you the truth, the one thing that surprised me for the last 2 years really is the whole financial condition, because as I mentioned in my presentation, we do it's a rudimentary thing, but a financial analysis of each local government to see if they're deteriorating financially or whether they seem to be holding up. And with the pandemic, I think we all maybe anticipated there would be some deterioration in financial condition, but as the treasurer and everyone spoke, all the aid that's been coming through the system, we really haven't seen that. So to me, that was the one thing that was surprising. I guess another thing is we do, and Senator Benson spoke to this, we do seem to be having more and more trouble getting some of the smaller municipalities to file their report. It's like pulling teeth sometimes. So I think, that might be a matter of staffing for some of them. We know whenever we have turnover, some of these places, they lose a key employee and, they lose the ability to get their financial records in order. So that's been an ongoing challenge. And we do the best we can, and we realize that the locals are struggling somewhat too to find qualified people. CPAs are in short supply these days. A lot of places even have trouble finding auditors. I get calls from local governments saying, hey, we can't find an auditor to audit our financial statements. So I'll say, well, what other locals are near you? And I'll tell them, well, check with this company or that company, because I don't want to play favorites, obviously. But, I think those are some of the challenges, or some of the things that I found, some of the things that I found more interesting. I mean, I found this interesting, whereas many people might find it pretty dry. So
Sure. I appreciate that. Thank you for the answer.
All right. So seeing no further questions from members of the committee, we just want to say thank you so much for the report and for your ongoing work on this. Really grateful for that. Thank you. We're going to hear from the Maryland Municipal League, and we're going to get an update on the Federal American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 funds. This is a presentation that I'm very much looking forward to hearing from you all, as I do have 8 municipalities in my district, and I'm very curious. And this is a big topic for the municipalities, and so very much looking forward to hearing your presentation.
Thank you very much, Senator. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Angelica Bailey. I'm the Director of Government Relations for the Maryland Municipal League. Before we jump into ARPA, I just want to thank the OLA for bringing some issues to our attention, and MML is very happy to assist with compliance. My colleague, Tom Reynolds, who is MML's Director of Education Services, is also on with us today, and so he would be the best contact for that, but we're absolutely happy to help. Tom has also been our members' main point of contact for information and guidance on ARPA funds. So I will turn it over to him shortly, but first we do want to thank Senator Cardin and Senator Van Hollen and all of our U.S. representatives who largely supported the ARPA legislation, as well as Secretary Brinkley and Haggerty Consulting and the Comptroller's Office and everyone at DBM for their partnership. They have all been instrumental in helping us help our members navigate the federal and state requirements that were attached to the ARPA funds. I mean, I'm sure, as you all know, local governments have been on the front lines of the pandemic in so many ways. We are ensuring residents get the resources they need, from unemployment assistance to outdoor dining permits to medical supplies and more. And those ARPA funds have been and will continue to be vitally important for our members. So I will turn it over to Tom now to talk about ARPA from the municipal perspective. Tom?
Thank you, Angelica. And thank you, Chairman Augustine. Thank you, Chairman Young. Sorry for my intrusion a little bit earlier. But I did want to say also thank you to the Office of Legislative Audits. And my offer was simply to work with the office to help with getting information from municipalities. We're obviously work closely with those folks every day. So to the extent we can be helpful in any way, shape, or form, we obviously want to see that compliance as much as anyone does. So I'll just start off, by acknowledging, and you all have heard lots about ARPA, and it is an unprecedented amount of funding that's come to Maryland's municipalities, and it's somewhat, municipalities and local governments across the country as well as states. But for us, we're particularly interested in the money coming to municipalities and the fact that it's coming to all cities and towns, and not as funding has historically and gone, to counties or to the largest cities. So just as kind of a brief recap, I guess, of the legislation, there are 9 metro cities in the state of Maryland, so they get their funding directly from Treasury. And because they are already in the system through formulas related to CDBG and other federal programs, then the remaining 147 are what they call NEUs, non-entitlement units. And those monies are being funneled through the state. DBM and DHCD in particular have been involved with that. We're looking at $619 million as opposed to becoming the metro cities in Maryland. A portion of that is also Baltimore City. And 528.9 million are coming to the non-entitlement units. The NEU calculations are based on population, and as opposed to the federal formulas for the metro cities. And those funds come in, they call it 2 tranches. One half is just about every municipality. All the metro cities have been receiving money through Treasury. The money that's come through the state is in large part because the state has played a critical role in making sure that municipalities have the pieces of the equation they need to receive the funds, things like DUNS numbers and being registered in the federal grant system. So most of the first tranche is almost all of the first tranche of funds has gone out to smaller municipalities already. Notably, there are 3 of the NEUs that have declined funding. And I don't have in front of me the names of those, but I can tell you that they are among the very smallest municipalities with at maximum 100 and 150 people, and haven't talked to them directly about their reasoning for not doing so. But our suspicion is that, again, they just simply don't have the staffing, the sophistication, nor in many cases the services that they can fund that with, so or use the funding for. And there was one who's been non-responsive so far, and we've been working with DBM to try and get a confirmation one way or another from those folks. Reporting, there's been a change. It had initially for everybody, there was a reporting that was due the end of this month, October 31st. I think that the feds have been really good in recognizing some of the challenges in the reporting here. So they have delayed that now for NEUs to April 30th of 2022 will be the first report, because a lot of us are still figuring out how to use the money and the proper procedures for it. And For metro cities, that first reporting date is January 31st, 22, also an extension from the end of October. So what can the money be used for? There's really 4 primary categories, which is, and this is true also for the counties and others you've heard from already, public health, lost revenue, premium pay, and infrastructure. And the focus of the infrastructure has been on water, wastewater, broadband, and also stormwater. So in one way or another, just about all of our municipalities can make use of those funds in some way or another. And I just want to shift over to get a little more focus on the NEUs and highlight again, Department of Budget and Management. We've been working with very closely. They've been incredibly helpful to our folks. They've also have a consulting firm, Haggerty Consulting, which have been fantastic. I will say we just had our fall conference last week, and we did a series of roundtables. We had representation from both DBM and Haggerty leading conversations, as well as Secretary of MDE and somebody from Maryland Nonprofits, because you all may be aware that one of the ways that these funds can be used is assisting local nonprofits who are doing critical work that aligns with the law in their municipalities. And okay, so I just want to say too, as far as the kind of stuff, I figured this would be a question or at least an interest among members of the committee. So what and this is really just anecdotally, we haven't done any type of a formal survey of what our folks are doing, though I believe DBM and Haggerty are going to be doing something like that. But we're mostly seeing, especially those that have their own water and sewer, a lot of the money is planned to go towards upgrading infrastructure for cleaner water, cleaner wastewater, and so that those facilities do not negatively impact the environment, which is a goal of everybody's with climate change, especially, and also for stormwater and broadband. And the other areas, we're seeing a lot of focus on the negative impacts from the pandemic. And we're seeing municipalities that are trying to help small businesses recover, and also with some rental and household assistance through ARPA. So those are, I guess, the highlights. And if there's any questions, let me pass things back over to Angelica, and then we'll see see if you all have any questions.
Thanks, Tom. Real quick, I just want to emphasize the point that Tom made. Municipal ARPA funds did not go through our county colleagues first. They were instead given directly to the municipalities. By contrast, funds from the CARE Act had to go through the counties first. That posed some logistical challenges for our membership. That wasn't the case with ARPA, so we were able to strategize much more easily and effectively. And when it comes to helping our residents, especially at their most vulnerable, like we've seen the last 2 years, simplicity and time is really of the essence. So that was very significant for us. But that's it. We want to thank you again, everyone, for having us, and the administration and DBM and Haggerty Consulting for their assistance. And we're happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. I see that Senator Riley has a question, followed by Senator.
Thank you very much. First, what's the best phone number to reach Maryland Municipal League?
That would be 410
Yep.
295
Right.
9100, and that's our general number.
That's fine. So the question is, in my district, I have 2 water treatment systems that are owned and controlled by local community organizations. They're not municipalities. I don't even know if they're incorporated. Would they be in line for any of this money?
The short answer is yes. So they would. So again, that's an example of it's not just nonprofits, but other quasi-governmental entities that could benefit from the money. If they have not received that money directly, a municipality that benefits from those services could share their money with those entities, as could the counties.
Okay. So who in your office should my county or for my point of contact call? Would it be you, Tom, or would it be Mrs. Miller?
Sure, they could call me.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much for your help. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Riley. Senator Benson?
Thank you very much. It's very good to see you all. Thank you for the support that you give me, when I call you. The one problem that we're seeing in not only municipalities in my district, I have 4, but we have some issues going on within our municipalities. I mean, we have 2 municipalities that have gotten rid of their mayors. That's very unacceptable. And it's not unacceptable, because if they don't abide by the rules and regulations of the charter, then we do have a problem. But there is a big problem with this issue of ethics, because we have municipalities where the council members do things that are in complete violation of the charter, of their charter. They don't understand the significance of the charter, but they also have very weak ethics committees. I'm just wondering how you all can help us to do something with these ethics committees that are established in these municipalities, because they should be operating as an independent body, but you have them being controlled by the council, and it just creates all kinds of serious problems. So with this money coming in, they are spending the money on what I think are programs that have not necessarily been to the benefit of the people in these municipalities. And when the ethics committee talks about it, it falls on deaf ears. I'm just wondering what we need to do in the way of enforcing what is put in place by the ethics committee. The ethics is just, it's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Can you comment on that, please?
Sure. Senator Benson, you and I were out with visiting one particular town back in the spring, I believe it was, and I realized that they have had a number of issues, and those are very legitimate. I'm just not sure how much, and I'd be glad to speak with you. I would love to have a conversation with you. That part of the conversation maybe shifts a little bit away from the purview of the committee, but would love to have that conversation. I'm not sure how much we can do, but would be willing to have that conversation. Ultimately, I think in most of those instances, it is if the municipal leadership does not step up and make changes proper changes in terms of the ethics commission, our members of the community do, and by voting people out of office. And I know that can be a long wait, but I would love to talk about that in a little more detail. I do acknowledge your concerns also with if you have a municipality or any local government that has that level of challenges and then is receiving a really substantial amount of money. Ultimately, that is up to the feds. So I'm sure they will be auditing governments of all sorts that are using the monies improperly. And that's one of the places where I think, and we always counsel our members that, that the press is watching, your citizens are watching, and, and we're going to try and be there to support them and do things properly. So again, would love to have that conversation some more.
Okay, you said auditing. Does that start on the state level, or does it go directly to the federal for auditing?
For the American Rescue Plan, it goes directly to the federal government. So the state only serves as a pass-through for the money.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Benson. I do have I'm sorry, I do have some, sure, yeah. I have some follow-up to that. Did you all provide any guidance to the municipalities with regard to, there's 2 parts, consultants who have proffered their services to help municipalities manage this process, this money, and what, if any, restrictions or any potential issues or concerns the municipalities may find themselves in if they are using some of the funds of this money for consultants to assist them with these funds. Can you answer that for me?
Actually, I think I can, Senator. So that is one of the, and I will say we're responding to inquiries all the time about how folks can use funds. And I know DBM and Haggerty are as well. There are some that are pretty clean cut at this point. We have direct answers from Treasury on what passes muster, what does not. There's still a lot of blurriness on these things, but on many of them. But we do know for sure that the funds can be used to hire consultants. We're seeing some municipalities are actually bringing on staff members to help administer and manage ARPA funds. And but they end up being limited contracts so that those individuals can help the municipality do this work properly. Does that help?
It does. Have you all provided any guidance as far as what that should look like? I mean, I've heard like just wildly different numbers that municipalities have been, that have been coming before them with regard to support for this. And I'm just kind of concerned. I'm concerned about it. Have you provided any guidance about what would be reasonable and things like that?
We really haven't, so a lot of this is very new, obviously. And, so we are aware that the funds can be used for administration and hiring people to do that kind of work. We're very limited in our staffing too. So there's only so much ability we have to, create our own guidance. What we're trying to do is send folks to Treasury, send folks to the National League of Cities, increasingly send folks to DVM and Haggerty. But and we also try and avoid what the Office of Legislative Audits had mentioned is, and a lot of these consultants that are doing this work are cropping up very suddenly in response to this this need. So, but we tend to try to avoid saying, go to this auditor, or go to this consultant. That's probably not terribly helpful. But.
Well, I hope that you all are paying close attention to it when you are there to protect your members. I think it's an area that, I worry about, honestly. I do worry about that. Are there any provisions for any clawback in this as well? I'm also just concerned about that. We get all the way to April, folks are reporting or not reporting, but they do report, and it's not, not considered sufficient. Do you know or anything about that?
My understanding is that the American Rescue Plan itself does have provisions for clawback. So if the money is not being used properly, if it does not get, if it's not used within the timeframes allocated, that also goes back to the federal government. So, but I do take very seriously your point about places where MML can be helpful. And I think in that guidance related to, consultants and who those folks might be, I definitely want to bring that back to the office and have more discussion about how we can be most helpful on that front.
Okay. No, I very much appreciate it. I appreciate the role that MML plays in supporting our municipalities. It's important, obviously, to us. Are there any other questions from anyone for them? If not, I will tell you that Chair Young's power went out. So that's why he's no longer with us right now. I will just close by saying thank you to you all for your presentation. These obviously is unprecedented with regard to these funds. And I really do appreciate that you all will be looking out for and supporting those municipalities as they are contending with sums of cash that many of them have not seen before. I mean, it's just really kind of an overwhelming, and it's dangerous, honestly, type of situation. I'm concerned for them. These are obviously part-time, part-time folks. And so anything you can do, I greatly appreciate that support to them. Senator Benson has her hand up. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, let me just say this. The senator is hitting upon a valid point here. With all of this money that's coming into our municipalities, and of course here in Prince George's County, we have about 27 municipalities. And what we're worried about, I'm sure that I want you to understand what we're worried about. We're worried about the consultants coming on board. the money that has come to these municipalities is not appropriately used, the federal government, in its audit, will discover that this is the case. And then there's going to be a demand that because they didn't use the money correctly, that the money be returned. That is where the heartburn begins for us, because we will have municipalities that are not going to be able to return this money that they have spent. That's why the senator is very concerned about the description for the consultants that come into these municipalities. We've got to come up with a way of putting requirements on the consultants so that we will not fall into this trap here. Because if the money is misused and we have the wrong consultants who are there mainly to get paid and who have no knowledge as to how this thing works, and they end up spending the money and the municipalities are being asked to return the money, then we are going to be in a deep, dark hole. That's what we're worried about.
Agreed.
And those are very legitimate concerns that are also shared by the municipality or by the Maryland Municipal League. And we will continue and we will step up our game as far as getting information out there as best we can.
One last ask is, now that it has been extended to April, it would be very, very helpful, and I would just be very grateful if you all did check in with your municipalities in, let's say, maybe January or something like that, just to see where they are. I mean, just to get a sense of, you know, I'm glad that they extended the time, because I knew, as you were saying, like it was just so close, so fast, like when they were
Right.
at the time. And I know that there is a window of time with which the municipalities have the opportunity to spend the money. I understand that.
Mhm.
I just feel like that it's important that they get that support, and they know that we get a touch on that. So I'm grateful for you all being here and for sharing this with us. I see my chair Young is back. He made it back, which is a good thing. So thank you to you all for joining us today. That is all that I have. Chair Young, do you have anything more that you would like to add?
I don't know, Chairman, and looks like I missed a robust discussion about. So with that, instead of going back to other things, I appreciate the time and everyone joining us today for another successful joint audit committee. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to the staff. We really appreciate your support in setting this up for us. And I hope that everyone enjoys the rest of their day. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.